everybody.
Hello.
This is Jessica and Angel here from DataCorps Technology Solutions here with Ask DataCorps Live Tuesday edition.
Yes, the Monday edition was slightly derailed.
A little bit. Things happen, life happens sometimes, but here we are on Tuesday talking about the biggest internet hype of the week, which is what?
Well, it's not of the week. It's actually been brewing for about a couple of weeks. And that this whole Congress repealing this internet privacy rule, lots of people from all over the spectrum have been commenting on it. And I think there's just a lot of hype going around. So I wanted to chat a little bit about it.
Well, first, can you talk to us about what the rule actually would have done that got repealed?
Sure. So the people that supported it were supporting the fact that internet service providers like Frontier, Bright House, Verizon, all the big guys, and a lot of the small providers, the rule would have prevented them from selling our browsing history to other companies. And so once the rule was taken down, a lot of the hype I saw was everybody rushing to use VPNs to protect their privacy and their browsing history and whatnot. So that's kind of centers around what we want to talk about. Again, going towards that hype, breaking down a little bit about the rule and what it is and what it wasn't, and whether it was really going to be effective or not, and kind of dispelling some of those myths.
So this was a rule that had been drafted and that was theoretically in place.
Actually,
it's just been repealed.
It wasn't even in place,
Right.
So it hadn't even gone into effect. So in reality, nothing has changed with this rule. The rule was set to go in place later on, but it really wasn't even implemented yet.
So this is something that your internet service provider could actually be doing right now?
They could. I don't know that it's in their best interest to do it anyway. And we need to understand also how some of these things work. So who would buy that history? More than likely, and again, everything revolves around money in the economy. So more than likely, that history would have been bought by an advertiser, and it would have been bought to determine how to get an ad to you.
Okay.
None of the major providers really want to give that information away, because if you give it all away, then what do they need you for? So what they do is they sell it in an aggregate or an abstract format. They don't really tell people who you really are. They tell people, this is your profile. Would you like to deliver an ad to a person that visits these types of sites, maybe around this age, maybe male, maybe the business owner. And so they sell that profile, and that's happening today. In fact, it's happening by Google, by Facebook. I mean, that's what Google AdWords is. That's what Facebook ads are. They're not selling your personal browsing history, but they are packaging your habits.
Right.
And designing profiles that then an advertiser can go in and buy that particular audience, if you want to use that term.
Right. We're actually entering into an area where I have something to bring to the table, because it's not just computer stuff here.
Yeah.
When we talk about Facebook ads, which I'm a big fan of Facebook ads, when you're a business owner, are incredibly effective. But the reason they're incredibly effective is because Facebook has a huge amount of information about you. Even if you're not putting stuff directly on the site, people have this mentality that, well, anything I post on Facebook then becomes something that Facebook knows about me. But the fact is, if you have the Facebook app on your phone or your tablet, or even if you have the Facebook website up, anything else that you do on those devices while the Facebook app is installed, you don't even have to actively be using it, Facebook is looking at that. So if you want to target, as a business owner, I want to target someone who's a certain age, a certain political belief, lives in a certain area, works in a certain area, has a certain set of special interests or hobbies, or we even discovered in the course of our Facebook marketing, we can specifically market to someone who's using a particular software to access things through, or someone who's using a particular operating system to access things through. Facebook, unfortunately, already knows a ton about you, a lot more than you realize. So it's not really, we're afraid of a world that unfortunately a lot of us are already living in.
And it's very important to note that this rule, and this was a big thing with opponents of the rule, is that it only applied to internet service providers. It didn't apply to the likes of Google and Facebook.
So they're already keeping all this information.
Right. And
Google, actually, Facebook I love. Facebook's great for advertising as a business owner. Google actually scares me a little bit. They know a lot.
It's a bit scary. But, the opponents of this rule made a case that, we already have rules by the Federal Trade Commission that dictate how customer data and client data can be published, which brings up an interesting point. And I always tell people, listen, on Facebook, you are not the customer.
Right.
You are not the client. An advertiser is the client. You are the product.
Right.
And that's very important. Anytime you get an internet service that's free or very low cost, you need to read the fine print, because more than likely you are not going to be the person that service is actually serving. That service will be serving its client, who are going to be the advertisers. And then you have to then think about, okay, what's the role of that service? And really at the end of the day, the relationship between you and that service simply comes down to that service wants to keep you inside of that service, using it as long and as often as possible, because that brings value to the advertiser.
Right. Right.
So it's very important to understand how that relationship works, and to understand that we don't consume data as much through an internet service provider as we do through a content service like Facebook or Google.
Right.
Yes, the internet service provider has our browsing history, but if they give away our identity and things like that, we would not trust them.
Right.
And so we would find alternate ways. So and a lot of them communicated this after the fact that when the rule was defeated. And they do have, if you read their contracts, they do have some privacy set up in there. So again, you don't want to always, whenever you see stuff come in the news, you don't want to always jump with the hype. Now, here's the hype that I thought was incredibly dangerous. And I want you to really hear me carefully here, because I don't want you to become a victim of this, okay? A lot of people jump to the conclusion that they should then get a VPN service. Well,
can you back up and explain what a VPN service is?
Absolutely.
Because I didn't understand until you explained it to me the other day.
A VPN is a virtual private network.
Okay.
And what that does is pretend the internet is a tube.
Okay.
It's like having your own private cable in that tube from your computer to another computer on the other end.
Okay.
Now, what a lot of privacy experts or privacy, we'll say pundits.
Okay.
Okay, because the experts actually got it right. But the privacy pundits and the media hyped up, and then a lot of people even on Facebook just followed whatever article they saw and reposted it.
Well, Big Brother's scary.
Absolutely. What they fail to understand is that when you go online and you just buy a VPN service, you do not know where the other end of that cable goes. And I would venture to say that a good number of VPN services out there are probably being run by the very people that go phishing and launch cyber attacks. So you want to be extremely careful with how or who you buy this VPN service from.
Right.
The cheaper it is, the greater the chances are that it's going to be somebody who would love to have your browsing data. And now,
just like you said at the beginning, if you're not paying for a product, then you are the product.
Right. And even though you're paying for it, part of the actual cost may be subsidized by somebody else. So again, you want to be very careful with that. Now, something that we do for our clients, and I use it myself, is our firewalls have the ability to create these VPNs. So now you control that other end of the cable. Yes, you still connect to the internet via your ISP, but again, you've got protection with the Federal Trade Commission and other places that can give you a reasonable sense of privacy. Now, I've got friends that I can think of. I've got your name in mind. You know who you are. That whenever we talk about privacy, ever since the Wiretap Act of, I think, 1934, we really don't have a a true expectation of privacy whenever our data, whenever our voice is being carried over a public utility, such as an internet service provider.
Right.
So all that is subject to subpoena and all that stuff. So again, it takes a lot of these arguments, and I hate hype. Okay.
Right.
But it adds hype, and then the hype adds fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And that's where, when we act on fear, uncertainty, and doubt, in a lot of cases, we can act out of, we can make irrational decisions.
Okay.
So we rush to buy these VPN services, and now all we're doing is directing all of our traffic and privacy to a party that we know nothing of,
right?
Except that we send them some money,
right.
And they may even be out of the country. So all these anonymizing services, and again, these are forms of VPNs where you put this app on your phone and you turn it on, and all of a sudden you're in New Zealand. And now you can watch New Zealand TV or all this other stuff. Uh-huh. There's a lot of security and privacy you are actually giving away by doing that, because somebody always knows and will have control over where that other endpoint comes out, and they can log all that information. And if you're paying them, you have to give them your credit card or some other form of payment. The big exception is if you're using payment by Bitcoin, which is pretty anonymous.
Okay.
But that's another show.
As a non-tech nerd, I've even heard of Bitcoin and how problematic that can be. So if it's made my radar, I'm sure it's huge.
So I just said a bunch.
That was a lot.
Do you need me to break it down? Do you want to kind of coax some breaking down of it out of me?
Yeah. All right. So I'm sticking with your analogy of thinking as a VPN, or thinking of the internet as a tunnel or a tube, and you're connecting on your end of the tube, and the person you're connecting to is the other end of the tube. Yes.
Correct.
And so a VPN, or a virtual private network, which I have to keep reminding myself what those initials stand for, is like sort of having your own cable, your own private cable in that tube between where you are and where you want to be. And you said something interesting, which I wasn't aware of. Apparently a VPN can basically fool a system into thinking that you're geographically located somewhere that you're not.
Right. Where if that VPN, and the term we use is terminate. If that VPN terminates in a different country, then to the rest of the world, your connection looks like it's coming from that country.
Interesting. So I could theoretically, as a big fan of some particular shows on a particular British network, I could theoretically use this to watch my show 6 weeks earlier than I can in this country.
Theoretically, yes.
Theoretically. But that, as you said, comes with a huge amount of risk.
It comes with a huge amount of risk, and it also carries legal liability.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah.
So if you're using a VPN, if you're paying for a VPN service then, and it all seems to be legitimate, and you're only doing legitimate things with it just to just to try to protect your privacy because you're afraid of whoever's gathering your data, what legal liabilities would that, beyond just someone maybe keeping your data or hacking your data or phishing your data or whatever, would that carry legal liabilities as well?
Well, there's international laws that cover copyright, cover regional aspects of certain shows and whatnot. So those are some of the legal liabilities you could expose yourself to. However, I'm not an attorney, so I can't really talk too much about that.
I'm just saying, if they're using their VPN to only do legitimate things, not shady things like watch TV from other countries, that may not necessarily carry.
It may not, and I like to use legitimate things because there are legitimate reasons to use a VPN.
And what would that be?
So one of the best reasons to use a VPN is if you're using public Wi-Fi at Starbucks or Panera or your favorite coffee shop or even at the airport. There's a lot of amateur hacker kids that with very little gear and very little training can actually intercept some communications. And some of them may hang out at your favorite coffee shop or at your airport. Probably not at the airport. They'd have to get a plane ticket to do that.
It's a little expensive.
Well, their parents might chip in for that. But so what that lets you do is when somebody's looking at that traffic and trying to intercept it, that traffic's going to be encrypted. So it's going to be encased in that tunnel. And so even something that is not secure, like if you're looking at a website that doesn't end in HTTPS, just HTTP, so that traffic would be encapsulated inside of that tunnel.
Pinterest.com, perhaps?
Pinterest, I think, does do HTTPS.
Oh, that's right. You have to sign in for that one.
And you have to sign in. So, but yes, so that would be a legitimate use. Another legitimate use would be to access your company's network. So again, that whole virtual private network, it's that cable that exists but doesn't exist that gets you right into your company's server so you can access files or applications that are inside of your company from outside. So
like if you're working in the field for whatever reason and you're out with a laptop and you need to access your company's secure data, a VPN would be the best way to get that done. It
would be one way. There's many ways to access data securely. That's just one way to do it. Again, depending on the application, how it's being used, the type of connectivity available. There's a plethora of other solutions available. VPN is just one tool inside of a big toolbox. But if you have heard everything that we're talking about today, heard about the privacy issues, and you're still concerned and you want to start using a VPN for whatever reason, what's the best place to go to get one? How do you? The first thing you need to do is, one, if you don't have a clearly defined set of results you want to get out of it, you need to get with an IT professional to define that, because a lot of times that's going to then determine the next step you take, whether you get a VPN that's based out of your office or if you go buy a VPN service. So there's a lot of thought that goes through that. If you're in a field that has any kind of regulation, such as payment card industry compliance or PCI compliance or HIPAA or Gramm-Leach-Bliley or all sorts of other regulatory bodies, if you're in one of those fields, there are going to be certain requirements that may actually prevent you from just buying an online VPN client and doing that. So again, a professional needs to go ahead and draw out the need, determine what the requirements are, and then select the best product for that. That's fair. Awesome. Cool. So now I know what a VPN is and why everybody's freaking out about that. And now you know that. Don't just because you see it on Facebook or on the news, and don't run out and just get a VPN. You actually could be doing yourself a lot of damage instead of actually helping. Right. So always make sure that you know exactly where your information is coming from when you make a decision, and exactly where your information is going to when you're getting ready to hand over that credit card. Absolutely. All right. Cool. So what's our one big takeaway? You know what? My one big takeaway, simple lesson today is the thing that you said at the beginning. If you're not paying for a product, then you are the product. Absolutely. That's our takeaway for the day. That is. I was going to have another one. Oh, what do you got? Yeah. So if you're not sure about something, talk to your IT professional. Oh, yeah. That's the takeaway from all of our Ask DataCorps Live. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, don't believe that hype. Really have somebody that you can trust, that you can talk with. They shouldn't mind having these conversations. They're very important. They're key to keeping your business safe online, keeping cyber crooks out, and all that good stuff. Awesome. All right. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it so much, and we will see you next week at our same bat time, same bat channel, Mondays at 2 o'clock. We'll see you then. Mondays at 2. See you. Bye. Have a great week.